Welcome back to the series of podcasts, Stay on Top of Your Work with TimeCamp. I'm Kate, and I'm a marketing assistant at TimeCamp. And today, my guest is Glen Alleman, and he's one of 83 influencers included in our list. Hi, Glen, how are you?
Hi, Kate. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. So, for the beginning, can you say a few words about yourself? What do you do, and what are your professional interests?
Okay. I've had a fairly long career, about 3 decades, mostly in space and defense and government acquisition. I started out as a software developer. I was trained as a physicist. I wasn't a very good physicist, so I had to find a real job. And I worked on radar systems and managed software groups. And after a few years of that, I moved into software management and then eventually moved into program management. And for the last 15 years or so, I've been focused on cost and schedule program performance, mostly in space and defense and in government acquisition, but also enterprise IT and pulp and paper and petrochem, and anywhere there's a large mission critical program that requires cost and schedule management as well as technical management. That's kind of my sweet spot.
That sounds interesting. So let's talk about management for a little bit. What do you think are the basics of management that everyone should know? What is your perfect vision and how do you see it?
Okay.
Especially when it comes to work management.
Right. Let me give a quick history. Here in the Denver area, there was a nuclear weapons plant. Rocky Flats was the name of that. And it's part of the Department of Energy's weapons complex. And they did work there to maintain the weapons and rebuild them and send them back to their customers, who were the Air Force and the Navy and the Army. And I ran a program for all the infrastructure removal. It was a cleanup site. It was the second worst toxic waste site on the planet at the time, and number one was Chernobyl in Ukraine. So one of my project managers gave me a little phrase once. He goes, you talking to me, Glenn, you always use the word, what does done look like? And that's not actually the phrase we want. We want to ask the question, what does done look like? And so we came up with 5 principles of project success. And the first one is, what does done look like in some unit that's meaningful to the decision makers? What's our plan to get to done? What are the resources we need to get to done? And what are the impediments along the way to done? And the last one is, how do I measure physical percent complete towards done? If those 5 principles have credible answers to those questions, then you're probably going to be successful in your project. And in my research work with a client, the Institute for Defense Analysis, we do root cause analysis of failed programs. We usually find that one of those 5 principles is missing. So if you don't know what done looks like, you don't have a plan, you don't have your resources, you don't have risk management, and you don't measure physical percent complete, you're unlikely to show up on time, on budget with something that the customer actually wants. So that's what I would say to anybody entering project management or even being a senior project manager. What are those 5 principles? Do you have them written down? Do you have the answers? And are you asking those questions literally every day?
That's great. That's really great. So at TimeCamp, we'll go back to this topic in a moment. But at TimeCamp, what we try to do is we try to make life and work easier for our customers by providing the best version of our tracking time software. And I'd like to ask you, what do you think about such tools? Do you think they are useful? Do you maybe yourself use such tools?
Yes. So I work in a domain in a community where time tracking is mandatory. On a government contract, We have to record all time billed against the contract, even if it is a time and materials contract. We certainly have to do that. Even if it's a fixed price contract, we also want to record the time. As well, in our enterprise clients, we want to know how much time is being spent in accomplishing the work. And it's critical to know that against the estimate for that work. Because if I don't know the actual time against the estimate, I don't know the efficacy of that staff. I don't know how well they're performing. I also need to know whether the physical percent complete of the work is being done as planned. A simple home project would be where we just painted a new coat of paint on a bedroom. Our daughter does not live here anymore. She's a young adult and has moved away. We repainted her room. So how long is it going to take to do that? Let's make an estimate. How long did it actually take to do that? Let's write that down. So the next room we make a new color, we make that estimate and then adjust it for the historical data. And technically that is called reference class forecasting. So I need to make a reference from the past, and I can only do that if I've recorded what the past was. So even in the commercial world, we want to write down how many hours it took to do the work. Did that match our estimate? If not, why? And build a better reference class. So I need both actual data and estimated data to make this project be successful.
And that's great to use such software. I do recommend trying out TimeComp. Maybe you will like it.
Yes, I saw the website. That was the first time I came across this. We have on our client sites a wide variety of timekeeping systems. Some are good, some are not so good. So I'll take a look and start introducing that to our clients.
Yeah, that's great. So what about other tools? Do you use maybe some other tools that are helpful in managing projects or work in general, or just time tracking?
Well, we definitely do time tracking. We have planning tools, and usually that's some kind of a scheduling tool. Microsoft Project is very popular, as is Primavera P6. There are some other tools. Both of those tools also use Monte Carlo simulators for risk management. And one of my specialties is risk management. And there's a quote from an emeritus fellow of IBM, Tim Lister is his name. And his quote is, "Risk management is how adults manage projects." So we are mandated to have a risk management plan. And so that hooks up to the schedule and the cost and the actuals. And of course, that goes right back to time tracking and budgeting. And then in our world, for government contracting, we also use earned value management, which also has actual costs, which is always comes from hours. And so timekeeping and time tracking is an integral part to all of those tools for project managers.
Mm-hmm. So in your work, do you somehow divide these tools, or do you use them all together? And when you think about those tools you use, do you have any particular ways of using them, or not really?
Well, there's usually a work instruction that tells people how to record their time against what charge numbers, in what work packages, and against what budgets, and to see how their time is evolving against that budget. The entire team has to use the same tool, because the finance and accounting people don't want to go looking around for different sources of data. But definitely there is a prescriptive way to use the time tracking tool, to use the budgeting tool, to use the planning tools. And that's usually has the logo of the company. It may say that, or has the logo of the program on it, and compliance with that work instruction is usually mandatory, because we're spending someone else's money. And even if we're spending our own money for some client, there's some governance document that tells you how to use these tools and how to produce the reports and how to enter your time and how to fix up the charge numbers and all that kind of business process governance process.
Okay. So let's go back to management of work and of teams management. At TiCamp, we are currently working on implementing the new version of our software. But as you may assume, there appear certain problems which are connected basically with managing teams' work. Do you have any special advices, remarks, maybe how to make this management smooth and easy? And how to avoid maybe some kind of problems?
Well, I would say there are one of our concerns and problems at all times is if those doing the work, do they know what their budget is for that work? That is it visible to them at all times? And at the spend rate or the absorption rate, we would call it, of their time, what is their estimate to complete and what is their estimate at complete? And if the tool does not integrate both the budget and the actuals visually for them on their screen, in some way to show, am I burning too many hours? Do I need to go get new budget? Am I not burning enough hours? And if we're billing a client, that might be a problem. We're not spending enough money and recouping our costs. Or just general, am I following the plan as it was planned? And do I know that on demand? So could I go to the timekeeping system, enter my time for today, say at lunch, and see that I budgeted 200 hours and here we are on Friday, and I've spent 180 hours of that, so I have 20 hours to go, and it looks like I can spend that in the next 3 or 4 days, so I'm fine. So I need that feedback at all times on demand without having to go to multiple systems. So one thing that could happen in the timekeeping system is to integrate some other tools, the budgeting tool, for example, or the physical percent complete tool. If I spent 180 out of 200 hours, I can't do it in my head, but am I 87% complete as I planned? If the answer is no, then I may not have enough hours left. Or if the answer is I'm 90% done, then I can give some hours back. So that whole visibility of what did I plan, what did I spend, and where am I, all in one place, would be very useful for each engineer or each developer or each planner, because now you have to go usually to 3 or 4 different systems to do that. So one feature may be a way to aggregate other systems onto that timekeeping system.
Well, I will definitely pass it on to my coworkers, and we'll let them know to listen to this podcast because it's really useful. So one last question, actually, last but not least. At TimeCamp, we have that slogan, stay on top of your work, because it's really important. And can you give us and our audience any interesting tips on how to stay on top of your work, or maybe some tips that you use in your work?
Okay. The first thing is a phrase that we use all the time, and that is the project is lost one day at a time. So in our community, we literally have the plan of the month. That is what I'm going to accomplish monthly, and that's written down very formally and reported to the customer against the budget and the actuals for that. And then we have the plan of the week, which usually starts with a meeting on Thursday for the next week. And then as the program progresses and a rhythm is established, we have a thing called the plan of the day. And that is, what am I going to accomplish today? And what are the units of measure of that? How do I know it's successful? Does everyone agree that that's what they want me to accomplish? And that comes from a culture. I had a moderate career in the military, and we always had a plan of the day posted, who's going to do what, when, and how, and with what resources. But if you look around at time management resources, they'll talk about the same thing. You make a checklist. You do that before you go to bed at night for the next day. So this notion of the project is lost a day at a time, you keep track of what you want to do the next day. You will not be late. As at the worst case, you'll be 1 day late. That may be critically important if you're going on vacation, but if I've got a large multi-year project, if I stay on task, and I stay on schedule, and I stay on budget every day, then everybody will be happy. So it's answering the question, how long are you willing to wait before you find out you're late or over budget? And in our community, the answer is 24 hours. That's it.
Okay. So one last question. What is the number one rule in your work when it comes to project management, work management, that you don't imagine your life without?
Risk management. If we don't know the risks, we're driving in the dark with the headlights off, and we will only discover them when it's too late. So project management, as Tim Lister says, is risk management. And that's what project managers should do. They should be risk managers. And that might be another feature that your tool could do is, what is the risk to the budget against my actuals? And that could easily be integrated. There's a lot of great tools for that. But do I see my risk register right with my time card? Because am I working on the right things? Am I actually working to reduce my risks? So risk management is how adults manage projects.
Okay. Thank you very much. So that will be the end of our interview.
Okay, good.
It was my honor to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Oh, certainly.